Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the webinar, our webinar about the skin microbiota. My name is Patrick Gonry and I work for Cobiotics. I'm a chemical engineer with actually a huge passion for the invisible world of the microorganisms, and especially for the microorganisms that protect us and live on and around our body. Today's webinar is actually about the importance of the skin microbiota in our industry, but also about the influence of cosmetic ingredients on that skin microbiota and by consequence on our skin. In the last 20 years, our industry went through many changes, and one of these changes, one of the aspects never changed, actually became more and more important, and that's the aspect of the sensitive skin. More and more people have a sensitive skin, and there are more and more allergies. But the challenge for the cosmetic industry is even bigger, because the consumer also becomes more and more sensitive. In the past, when they didn't like a product, they simply didn't buy it. But now they feel the need to express their opinion on Facebook, or they start a blog, or they even become a professional influencer evaluating cosmetic products. And that is actually seeds, that is actually the beginning of a new trend. And that's the trend of bulletproof cosmetics. You cannot afford one mistake anymore. And yet you do all the efforts to make good cosmetics. You use natural ingredients, you use mild ingredients, you try to keep your products free from everything with the slightest suspicion. And yet, when you have, for instance, 1,000 customers, 3 customers might genuinely react on your product. How is that possible? The other 997 are not reacting. Well, this actually calls for a next level of skin protection, an extra mildness you need to build into your products. And that is precisely where the skin microbiota comes into the picture. Before I go on, I have to warn you. Everything in this presentation is true today, but can become a lie tomorrow. Because in the 20 years we work with skin microbiota, I had to review our strategy and our insights many times. The information is evolving, and every year there are new and new discoveries. But let's start with something we know very well, the skin. The skin is our outermost organ, and it protects us from the hostile environment. Actually, that makes keeping your skin healthy life essential. And that is precisely the purpose of cosmetic products, to keep the skin healthy. But turns out that the skin actually is not completely in contact with the environment. The skin on itself is protected by a layer of microorganisms, which we call now the skin microbiota. But if we go deeper into the skin microbiota, we found out that actually it's one layer. The skin and the skin microbiota are like one organism, a symbiosis, or maybe better, a marriage where it's about giving and taking. And what do we give to the skin microbiota, or what do they take from us? Well, we are their food supply. They eat our dead skin cells, sweat, oxidized skin lipids, and sebum. In other words, they are eating our garbage. And by eating our garbage, they eliminate our garbage and they keep us clean. And that is the first thing we get from them, hygiene. Thanks to the microorganisms, we stink less. But besides keeping the skin clean, they go much further, because they will transform our garbage into protective antimicrobial peptides, or other words, antibiotics. Antibiotics that will prevent the invasion of bacteria on our skin. They also will transform our garbage into acids. acids that will prevent the colonization of fungi like Candida albicans. And beside all this military protection, they will also transform our garbage into proteins that protect us during sun exposure by regulating our inflammation process. And some of us might be lucky to have the strain of Staphylococcus epidermidis that produce hydroxyperines. And hydroxyperines are anti-cancer medicines that destroy skin cancer and even prevent skin cancer. The skin microbiota is also producing antioxidants, SOD. These are actually first-class antioxidants. The antioxidants we use in cosmetics like vitamin E, vitamin C, polyphenols are second-class antioxidants. Now, second-class antioxidants are able to capture free radicals. But what is never said is when an antioxidant captures a free radical, it becomes a free radical itself. It's a little bit like with vampires. When you are bit by a vampire, you become a vampire yourself. First-class antioxidants are able to prevent the formation of free radicals. So they go a step beyond protection. The skin microbiota is also producing molecules like glycerin and hydrating proteins that hydrates the skin microbiota and of course will also hydrate the skin. Now, if you hear all that, hydration, anti-aging, antioxidant, sun protection, are these not the functions of a perfect day cream? And it's there on your skin 24 hours a day for free. It's paraben-free, it's palm-free. And that will be the new strategy of cosmetics. Cosmetic products, when applied on the skin, shouldn't interfere or shouldn't destroy this microbial protection, this microbial day cream. Actually, cosmetic products should add their protection to that microbial day cream. But again, the skin microbiota goes much further than just protecting the skin. When, and I think lately you use quite some hand sanitizers, when you use a hand sanitizer on the skin, you completely eliminate your skin microbiota. But yet, 4-6 hours later, they are all back, as if nothing happened. How is that possible? Where do they come from? Well, actually, when you remove the skin microbiota from your skin, they re-emerge from the depth of your epidermis. Because the skin microbiota is also 4 to 6 layers deep, where you cannot reach it with products. And when the surface is clean from a skin microbiota, the microorganisms deep in your skin recolonize, reprotect the surface. And again, they go much further, because each hour you release 40 million microorganisms in the atmosphere. And initially, they form an antimicrobial shield around your body. When now a microorganism tries to reach your body, it will be killed by actually the microbial air force that is around your body. When you stay 24 hours in the same room, the whole room becomes contaminated by your microorganisms, so that you are quite safe. You understand that all that protection, all these molecules that the microorganisms make cost a lot of energy, cost a lot of food. And actually they just get garbage from us. So they need to be very careful with the food. And that's why the skin microbiota organized itself in a kind of food web. A food web where the food will be recycled over and over again. It all starts the food web with the Staphylococcus. The Staphylococcus is a microorganism that can digest keratin from the corneocytes. Staphylococcus epidermidis has the enzyme keratinase. But he's not keeping the keratin for himself. He's transforming it in, for instance, lactates. And lactates are good food for cutibacteria. The Cutibacteria is not keeping the lactate for itself. On its term, it will transform it into propionates and acetates. And the propionates, acetates are food for the micrococcus. The micrococcus is not keeping it for itself, it's transforming it into amino acids. And the amino acids are food for the whole microorganism, or the whole skin microbiota. So basically they are feeding each other, and in this way, over and over again, they reuse the same food. Now, if one of them would be down, or by some circumstances, they still get food through other channels. It's a little bit like internet. When one server is not there anymore, the information goes through other servers. And they really need to work like this, because the skin is not a paradise. It's not a holiday place. It's actually Chernobyl, because the skin is constantly exposed to carcinogenic UV light. And this UV light is also carcinogenic for the microorganisms. On top of that, the skin has no water. Yes, there is a lot of water in the skin, but not on the skin where they live. So water is life essential for all the microorganisms. And with cosmetic products, how do we actually help them at the moment? Well, we shower them with killing preservatives, destructive alcohol, disturbing emulsifiers and surfactants, and also essential oils have an antimicrobial effect. And on top of that, they also have to cope with pollution, heavy metals, fine dust. We use also quite a lot of antibiotics. Antibiotics comes into the bloodstream, and through the bloodstream comes into the skin, and the antibiotic starts to kill bacteria. And in this way, they favor fungi. So fungi can start to invade your skin. Also, swimming in the swimming pool, you will perform a complete genocide on your skin microbiota. Swimming in the sea will also alter your skin microbiota. And yet, after all these challenges, after all these problems they encounter, they bounce back. They come back time after time. But to bounce back, they need food time after time. They need the right energy time after time. And when they don't find it on the skin, then they will not bounce back correctly. And your skin evolves into a sensitive skin, into more acne, more itching skin, or even in worse cases, eczema, psoriasis, dandruff. This is all the result of a skin microbiota that didn't bounce back anymore. Classic cosmetics have not really an answer to that problem, because classic products are focused on the skin barrier of the skin cells, of collagen. And that's why the new words that we hear lately in our industry are being mild for the skin microbiota, improving the balance, increasing the diversity of the skin microbiota. These are all great ideas, great words, but what do you do when you are all alone in your lab in front of the raw materials? Which raw material are you going to put in your cream, and which can't you put in your cream anymore? Well, let's have a look at each strategy. The first one, being mild for the skin microbiota. Well, being mild for the skin microbiota is a little bit more than not kill them. Of course, alcohol is not mild for the skin microbiota, but also ingredients that will change the community, that will favor certain microorganisms and disfavor other, will not be mild for the skin microbiota. We did some measurements, and we found out that certain preservatives can kill up to 90% of your skin microbiota and change the whole community up to 70%. It's as if you have a complete different skin microbiota. Emulsifiers are not destructive, but they change the community. The same for surfactants. And alcohol has a huge destructive effect on the skin microbiota, and also on the remaining survivors. They will be different than the initial skin microbiota. But balance, what does that mean actually? Well, first of all, there is the balance between the microorganisms and your skin cells. They work together. Secondly, there is the balance between the microorganisms, the species, the strains together. And the most important balance is the food balance. They are adapted to the food they get from the skin. And this is for everybody individual. We all have an individual balance. And that probably explains why to the same cosmetic products, 1,000 people will like it and 3 people will show reactions, because everybody is different. Now, being skin microbiota mild in the case of a healthy skin means that you do not disturb the food supply. For a problem skin like acne, means that you need to improve the food supply, less sebum. And the problem is now that you will see in a moment that each action you do on the skin has its consequences on the balance, on the community, even water. Here you have a graph in which you see in the first column ingredients like water, glucose, hyaluronic acid, and then you have 6 columns with microorganisms. When you see a blue rectangle with an equal sign, that means that this ingredient has no effect on this particular microorganism. When it's red, it means this particular ingredient will kill that microorganism. When it's green, it has a positive effect on that microorganism. And when it's blue without anything in it, it means we have no information about it. Now, if we look at water, water is normally not present on the skin. If suddenly you put water on the skin, microorganisms like Corynebacteria and micrococci in your face, who normally don't grow there, can start to grow. Luckily, they are harmless. They do not give any infection. But a much bigger impact you will have with pH. Microorganisms need to eat, and they eat proteins, they eat polysaccharides, but they do not have a mouth. They have a membrane. And actually all the food has to go through the membrane. But a protein is quite a big molecule. It cannot go through their membrane, so they have to cut it in small pieces. Microorganisms do not have a fork or a knife, so they have to cut the protein into small pieces with enzymes. But enzymes, the activity of enzyme, is very depending on the pH. When the pH of the skin is lower than 4.5, all the enzymes of all the microorganisms are not active, so they cannot eat. So by lowering the pH of the skin, you starve them. If the pH becomes above 5, the first microorganism whose enzyme starts to become active is C. acnes and Staphylococcus epidermidis. If you go much higher, above 6.5, the C. acnes enzymes are not working anymore, also not of others, but the Staphylococcus epidermidis starts to flourish. Glucose and fructose seems also to be harmless because it feeds everybody. But again, this is not good because you shouldn't feed Staphylococcus aureus or Malassezia furfur. And with giving glucose and fructose to your skin, you feed microorganisms that normally never get food and shouldn't get food. And each ingredient has its own story, and very interesting is the story of L'Oreal. L'Oreal is the preferred food of the C. acnes, but L'Oreal is also a preservative for Corynebacteria and micrococci bacteria. That's why an ingredient like coconut oil or esters based on L'Oreal have a huge impact on your skin microbiota. Now, this is all very interesting, but very complex, because if you look at my graph, there are maybe 6 ingredients, while our cosmetic industry has more than 20,000 ingredients. And there are only 6 microorganisms, while on your skin you have 1,000 microorganisms. So this way of working, being skin microbiota friendly, is probably just dumb luck. It's not a strategy you can do with the information we have at the moment. Let's have a look at the second strategy, improve the balance. That means that you make the skin microbiota so strong that it will not change when you change the food or when the environment change. Well, that is precisely where prebiotics comes into the picture. A prebiotic is a bioselective food for only the skin microbiota, not for foreign or pathogenic microorganisms. Prebiotic is actually the choice of nature because the mother milk given to babies contains 200 different prebiotics called HMO, human milk oligosaccharides. And prebiotics are always used in nature to make your microbial protection stronger. We studied quite some prebiotics, and actually the most interesting and practical prebiotics in cosmetics are inulin. Inulin is a polymeric sugar from fructose and one glucose unit, and it's derived or from chicory which grows in rainy countries like Belgium and Chile, or from agave, which grows in the sun from Mexico. And how does inulin work on the skin? Well, it will feed directly three members of the food web. It will feed directly Micrococcus, Brevibacteria, and Corynebacteria. And through the food web, these three microorganisms will then feed all the others. So with inulin, you only feed three microorganisms who actually give you no infections at all. Inulin is not feeding directly Staphylococcus or Cutibacteria, which are microorganisms who protect us, but who also infect us. And this is always dangerous to work on them. So we work with the three harmless microorganisms. But what can you expect actually from a prebiotic? Well, the first prebiotic we tested is called BIOLIN. It's a mixture of an inulin with 10 fructose unit and a polysaccharide, a polyglucose. The first test we did is not really a test. It was more a treatment of 15 babies. Babies who were suffering from diaper rash, but the diaper rash is more a cosmetic description. It was more a candida infection. When the babies were treated and they were using again their baby cream, they bounced back in their initial complaints. So all the time they got back their infection. However, when they were treated with a baby cream containing prebiotic, which you see on the right side here, 14 of the 15 babies never got an infection again. Why? Because their skin microbiota in the diaper area became stronger. A similar test was done on 50 female patients who were suffering from infections in the intimate area. When they were treated and they were using an intimate wash, again, after some days, weeks, months, they fell back in their initial complaints. However, if the intimate wash was enriched with a prebiotic, they didn't get infections anymore. Important to notice is that the inulin cannot cure the infection, but can prevent it. Another inulin we have is a high soluble inulin, which is easy to combine with surfactants and ethanol. It's a polyfructose with 10 fructose units. Now, the worst thing you can do for your skin is to treat it with alcohol. That's what we do lately a lot with hand sanitizers. And you can see here that when you apply on the skin an alcohol solution, even 4 hours later, still 63% is out of balance. The skin microbiota is recovering, but it's not the same skin microbiota as you had initially. If you combine this disturbing alcohol with a prebiotic, PrebioLin Phos, only 28% is still out of balance after 4 hours. But there is much more. Because when you treat your skin with alcohol, you do that for a purpose. You want to eliminate an unwanted pathogenic microorganism. Now, I don't know how it is for viruses. This is done with a good old pathogenic bacteria, Staphylococcus hominis. You can see when this is an ex vivo test and the skin explant was infected with that microorganism. When you do nothing, he starts to grow and infect the skin. When you treat it with alcohol, you diminish it. But when you treat it with alcohol and prebioline phos, you will kill the pathogenic microorganism even more efficiently. That is quite strange because inulin is just a polymer of fructose. It has no antimicrobial properties. Well, let's have a look what alcohol actually was doing. Alcohol, yes, it was killing the unwanted microorganism, but alcohol was also killing and disturbing the protective microorganisms. If you combine that alcohol with inulin, the inulin will support the disturbed skin microbiota, so it will recover, and when it recovers the skin microbiota, it can do its protective task, protecting the skin from harmful microorganisms, and that is what has happened here. So inulin has a double effect. It rebalances and it's more selective hygienic effect. When you combine this inulin with a surfactants, they will disturb the community with 22%. However, if you combine the disturbing surfactant with inulin, the skin microbiota is absolutely not disturbed. And then the last inulin is a high molecular weight inulin derived from chicory and from agave. It's called prebiolin aga. The test we did here is actually something very simple, a cream containing quite a lot of preservatives, a lot of phenoxyethanol, parabens, and imidazole urea, a good old mixture from the 90s that will pass all the challenge tests. But when you apply it on your skin, in 1 hour, you destroy 90% of your protective skin microbiota. That means that 90% of the antioxidants are gone. 90% of the microbial hydration, it's gone. If you combine these destructive preservatives with inulin, you make the skin microbiota 5 times stronger because only 50% will be destroyed or 50% remains. And this is also visible. This is a test we did with a cream containing hyaluronic acid, 0.1%, which is quite a high percentage, and a cream containing 1.5% agar, prebiolin agar, which is the inulin here. Well, you see that this hydrates 20% more than hyaluronic acid, while hyaluronic acid is actually the emperor of hydration. This is most likely the microbial hydration who is not destroyed. Lately, I get quite a lot of pictures of customers using prebiotics. And I want to share the pictures. They are not done in a lab, or it's just consumers who sent this to me. And the first test you see is a young lady who was suffering from erythema when she was a kid. Then her eczema disappeared, but last year it came back and she couldn't get rid of it anymore. Then she used a solution just with BIOLIN, so our first prebiotic, and you see after 3 weeks that the eczema was disappearing. This is curing, but you could also use it to prevent. The second customer, well, he was not directly the customer, is a small baby who had severe eczema. He was treated with a water and oil cream containing prebiotic, and you see in 3 days his eczema was seriously better. Not gone yet, but it improved. And the last person is from our own lab, because lately we are using a lot of hand sanitizers, and you can see when she was using hand sanitizer, the skin was very red and dry, and especially here you see the start of eczema. 1 week later, after using the water and oil cream with prebiotic, the hands became normal. And more customers and people are using this now, so more and more pictures are arriving like this. But let's go to the last strategy, to increase the diversity of the skin microbiota. The idea is great, because the more different microorganisms you have on your skin, the more different soldiers, the more different protection, the better you will be protected against unknown and unwanted microorganisms. This is indeed true. When you have an infected skin, like acne, there is one microorganism who is ruling over all the others. Then you need to improve the diversity. You need more different microorganisms. But when you have a healthy skin, you have your own personalized, balanced diversity. You shouldn't change that. There are indeed studies showing that people living in New York have a much lower diversity than the Indians living in the Amazon forest. Yes, but this is simply the environment. In a city, there are less microorganisms than in the jungle. This doesn't mean that your skin is better protected. If you really want to increase the diversity, you can easily do that by using a lot of preservatives in your cream. Because the previous test I showed you also increased the amount of microorganisms on your skin after using the preservatives with 70%. So you get more microorganisms by using preservatives. How is that possible? Well, the preservatives are weakening your skin microbiota, and your skin microbiota is actually the gatekeeper of your skin. It's actually the custom agent. And when they are gone, or when they strike, then all different microorganisms can invade your skin. Also, a hydrated skin has a lower diversity than a dry skin. The reason is that a hydrated skin is intact, it's closed, it's flat, and it's very difficult for microorganisms to grow and to invade on that skin. However, when the skin is dry, the skin is rough, and it's much easier for microorganisms to attach themselves to a rough skin. So improving the diversity is marketing-wise maybe interesting, but scientifically it does not give you so much more benefits. So to conclude, actually it's all about food because the microorganisms need food to do their gigantic task. And it's mainly in the food that it goes wrong. By using cosmetics, you change their food, and in certain cases, this might change their balance and can evolve into sensitive or even to an affected skin. One way to prevent that is by using a prebiotic where you make the skin microbiota stronger, and then you can support claims like supporting the skin microbiota, preventing, or skin microbiota friendly. Now, I'd like to thank you for your attention, and if you are really interested more into that subject, you can follow us by LinkedIn, by Facebook, where we publish quite some articles and some new observations.